So, warmly welcome
Thank
everyone to the second in our series of fireside chats with projectors, and a special warm welcome to Simran. Hi.
Hi.
So, Simran, you're joining us from London,
Yes.
and um, you are a projector. So we are very much looking forward to. Well, I'm very much looking forward to finding out a bit more about you, getting to know you a little bit, getting to know some of the what's gone down in your life so far, and especially how that's been since finding out about human design and since starting to get to know your chart. How has your human design journey been so far? I think you said you're quite new to the experiment. Is that?
I'm very new to it. I only found it maybe 6 months ago. And I found it through another community, and it's been life-changing for me. I wish I'd found it 20 years ago. I might have been able to avoid a lot of heartache and frustration. So yeah, I use it actually with some of my own clients, not to give them readings, but actually just to get an idea of what I might be looking at. So it's been amazing.
And what kind of coach is that? Coaching clients or therapy
So,
clients or something?
well, I'm an intuitive reader, and I do energy healing, and I'm also a health coach. But I have a previous life in banking, so I have quite a corporate head as well. So,
Amazing. So you're then helping your clients to get introduced to human design and to be able to
well, I might
incorporate
use
that.
it. I might use a human design, especially a lot of corporate clients want something, concrete to go by. They like looking at graphs and things. So I suggest that they look at it, and maybe before a session, I might have a look at it with their birth information if they have it.
Awesome. And so what you said that things have changed since discovering with human design, since seeing it, since learning that you are a projector.
Yeah.
What was there like a big aha moment looking back and going, aha?
Yeah, it was more like, oh my gosh, it all makes sense now, because I think since I was maybe 22, 23, I was very much coming from a background which is like, you do well in school, university, you get a good job, and then you hustle. And so I did that. And I just realized I spent 20 years hustling, and I always thought I was failing. And I had a lot of dark nights of the soul, really, really dark moments where I just felt no matter what I do, I'm always failing, and I'm trying so hard. When I look back in my life, the only jobs that I used to get is either from a boss who used to work with me, or a friend, or a recommendation. But every time I applied to a job, I think I applied to 10,000 jobs in my life.
Wow.
Jobs.
Yeah.
I didn't get a single interview.
Wow, that aura is powerful.
So you can imagine, like, even online, somehow they see that, like, no, don't write to her back. But you can imagine how debilitating it was for me, because I was supposed to wait for an invitation. I mean, every time I ever got something in my life, it was because someone else offered it.
This is so, I know people are going to be, people watching this who are, especially people who are newer to being a projector, are going to empathize with this so much. And it's so cool, the clarity of it. It's not like, oh, a little bit, I didn't get as, it's like nothing, nada, zilch. And yeah, like, have you heard this thing in human design, like each type is a different kind of vehicle?
Yeah.
So if you're trying to race, and if you've got an off-road vehicle, and you're trying to race against Formula One cars, it's not going to be very good. It's not going to work. And if you don't realize you're driving this kind of super, four-wheel drive, multi-suspension vehicle, and you're wondering why all the other cars are zipping off, and then you're like, oh, human design, right?
It completely, because I thought, I grew up thinking, if you work hard, you can succeed, and everyone is capable of doing everything. And then I realized, so I got really competitive. I think my nature was super competitive. So I would push myself, thinking if I pushed myself hard enough, I'm going to make this, I'm going to crack the code. So since I was 21, I've been trying to fix myself. And so even though I worked in banking and corporate jobs, I always felt there's something wrong with me. So that's how I developed my more intuitive talents, because, you know, besides from working 16 hours a day, I would then come home and I would think there has to be something wrong with me. So then I'd like do Reiki and other things to try to fix myself in order to stay in the race.
So was there a big shift from being in the race in the banking world? Was it a moment in time when it shifted? Could you talk a little about that transition?
Yes, I mean, I have to say it was not by design. It was through situations where, so for the first maybe 11 years of my career, so since 21, I worked in banking. I kept moving jobs, so I'd always move up, but I could never stay in a job more than a couple of years. And something would happen where either I felt it was being unethical, usually that was me, and then I just couldn't stay in the place and I had to leave. And so what happened was I'd keep trying to go back into banking or get other jobs. So I had really good names on my CV. You know, I speak 3 languages. I lived in so many countries. And at some point I became unemployable, like just couldn't get a job.
Wow.
And I would try and apply. And, you know, people like go to headhunters. I'm like, I've never got a job from a headhunter. And people couldn't understand, which frustrated me even more, because I thought, headhunters are there for a reason. Why can't they help me?
So on the one hand, we're looking at your CV and we're like, there's you. Yeah. On the one hand is your CV, and this doesn't make sense. We're looking at you. We're looking at the experience you've got, the jobs you've done, and we're like, this doesn't add up. And on the other hand, we've got your human design chart over here, and we're like, I mean, obviously now in retrospect, we're like, this makes more sense. This is like, yeah.
And I just thought, I'm not normal, you know, because I had no idea there was such a thing as human design. I mean, I've done astrology, psychic readings, and it's funny. I've been doing these psychic readings since I was 18. I've always been into it. And you know what? Not one psychic reading has actually come true. Not one. I've probably had 500.
Okay.
And, I mean, I give my own reading, so I can read other people, but people can't seem to read me.
Yep.
And so what changed is I was living in Spain 2 years ago on a whim. I was just like, I've had it. I'm going to Spain. And I got a job there somehow. And that job lasted 6 months because I was working for the US part of the business, which they decided to close down. And that was the last corporate job I have. So the job I have now is because the universe closed every other door. I had no choice.
It's so interesting because you opened this with saying it wasn't by design, but and I think you were saying you didn't consciously choose it. But then maybe, you know, the purist amongst human design say, well, there's no choice. It's all mechanics. It just unfolds. It just works, and it's just.
So people who think that we have free will, you know, because I've always said, oh, I have no free will, and people are like, of course you have free will, and I just always felt I didn't. I thought my life is random. I just react to it. And every time I said that to people, especially people in the spiritual community, you know, which I'm now part of, although that name triggers me a bit, but, you know, they're like, you have free will, you make your life, you choose it. And I was like, no, that hasn't been my experience.
It's this again, isn't it? On this one hand, we've got this, just listening to you, it's such a beautiful illustration of trying to make the not self work.
Yeah.
It sounds like you had a really good go at that for like 10 or 20 years to really try, and it, you know, definitely wasn't for lack of effort or desire or, you know, trying to make it work.
Yeah. And you know
whole world.
Projectors like lose energy, we don't have our own energy, but I always thought, or maybe I wasn't aware, I'm aware now, maybe it's psychosomatic, where when you know that you don't create your own energy, you suddenly feel tired. Whereas before I would just keep going, you know.
Yeah.
Keep going, and I would get burnt out, but I wouldn't listen to myself. So I had adrenal fatigue and all kinds of things, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna make it.
So it sounds like you'd already made the switch, maybe or the universe had kind of made the switch, and your life had changed.
Yeah.
into this new world of being open to more intuitive things or spiritual things.
Yeah.
But then the chart came along 6 months ago. Should we pull your chart up now and have a little look? Let's so let me know when that's coming through, and we're going to zoom in a little. You can see that okay, Simran?
Perfect.
Fantastic. So if you were talking to you 6 months ago who'd just seen your chart for the first time, or just found human design for the first time, what key features would you be pointing out here on this chart to?
Well, first of all, I see a lot of colors which mean nothing to me. And then I see like the bottom part is completely empty. And so the top part seems to be full and the bottom part seems to be empty. And do you know what? In the work that I do, so I do a lot of theta healing. So your lower chakras are about manifestation in the physical world. And your upper chakra is about connection with spirits. And so I'm really good at telling people what's going to happen to them, what's happening in their life. I'm really good with my connection upwards. I have nothing downwards. And I feel that.
So this is your chart. We've got, you know, one of the, I like to just start with the real basics and what's obvious about the chart. We can talk about what it is in the chart that makes you a projector. Then we can look at the authority, the types of projector. And there's also two of the open centers that have already come up that we can show the markers for some things you've described, which are really, really clear. So, you know, 101 human design basics. There are 9 centers and you have got 5 of those colored in. That's what we see, and in human design we say you've got 5 defined centers out of the 9, and then you have 4 centers that are undefined, which are the white ones. And so we're working in human design with a 9-centered being. We hear a lot of people in the groups who are speaking the lingo saying, you know, it's the evolution from the 7-centered being to the 9-centered being. So that's
I have no idea what that means.
Right. I remember you asked a question. You were like, "What's this 9-centered thing?"
Yeah.
Like, so anyone who's in human design will you know, we're on a journey of exploring these 9 centers. You also sometimes see people being a bit snarky, and if they disagree with something someone said, they're like, "Oh, that's such 7-centered way of thinking," or, you know, whatever. So
it's old school, you mean?
Say again?
You mean that's old school?
Exactly. It's like, this is the new paradigm. This is what Ra said we're coming into. And he also talked about, you know, obviously Ra being the person who brought through human design. Yeah. And he also talked about the fact of how in the old days, the manifestors were like the top of the pyramid, and the manifestors told people what to do. They were the bosses. They were the pharaohs getting the pyramids built. They were in charge. And it's also that consciousness of creating the rules, the laws of society. And I don't know if you saw that post in one of the groups recently, but there's someone talking about being projectors being all about breaking the rules in the right way and knowing how to do that. And
I love that. I mean, I think that's the story of my life.
Right. Oh, well, let's dig into that in a moment. But just to finish that thread, it's like, as projectors, we are not here to be the boss of anyone. We're not here to tell anyone what to do. And for me, that's part of why we need to wait for invitation, because we're kind of over on the side. But nowadays, people aren't, you know, wherever they are, they're not waiting to be told what to do. The truth of it is, you know, of course, in work scenario, we still have hierarchies and pyramids, but we're moving more into an equal time now where, you know, it's about everyone's personal activation. And if they feel that someone can assist them with that, then they can invite that person, say, "Hey, you know, could you, you know, what do you, I get a feeling like you might know something here. Could you help me out?" And that's the projector invitation with, you know, are you familiar with this idea of recognition and invitation? Because that's, if you get that right, you know.
Well, you know, I all I know is that my theme is waiting for the invitation, and I don't know too much about others. I know, you know, manifestors used to be the leaders, but I don't know too much about what their themes are and how that relates.
Yeah. Well, that's if we can as part of this call explore this thing about waiting for invitation and what does it, you know, and one thing we can do is we could look back on, you know, your because you said that all the jobs that you were getting were as a result of someone from your network reaching out to you and connecting. So we can also talk about your profile. Where would you like to jump into this first, Simran?
Well, I remember you were telling me about the different kind of projectors, and you said I was a classical projector, and I didn't even know there were different types of projectors.
This is a fantastic place to start. Yeah. Now, sometimes people get a little confused between there's three types of projector, and then there's also authority. So when you're learning, that the hierarchy for learning that pretty much everyone recommends is, first of all, learn your strategy and then your authority. So obviously as a projector, it's wait for invitation. And are you familiar with being splenic authority?
Well, yeah, so that's like my gut instinct, my intuition. Even when I do readings, I feel it in my body. I know when something is true.
So the spleen is the brown triangle on the left as we look at the body graph. And exactly as you say, it's like, it's one of the three sensing centers. Have you come across that idea before? There's three centers that sense information.
Well, I just know the spleen is one of them, but I don't know what the other ones are.
They're actually the three triangles that point in towards the middle. So you've got the ajna at the top, which is a triangle pointing down. The spleen, as you look at it on the left, pointing in that way. And both of those you have defined, which means you have consistent energy there. And then on the right, we have the emotional center, which is also called the solar plexus center, which is level with the spleen, which is pointing in. So those are the three sensing centers.
Okay.
And they each sense something different. So the spleen is the one that works the quickest. It's like right there, keeping you safe, because it's all about sensing danger.
Yeah.
It's that little voice that's like, nah, don't do it. And your logical brain's going, but why not? I do this every day.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, don't. And then later you find out, oh, a tree fell down and squashed someone, you know, and you're like, okay, spleen just knew and I listened to it. Great. So that's the spleen, and that's the quickest one. Then the ajna is a little bit, the mind's a little bit slower, but it's still, you know, active in the now. You know, the mind is like processing information. These thoughts and ideas come in at the top, and then that's like the openness there, that connection to the one you were talking about. And then the ajna is asking questions, processing the information, feeding it through to the throat. So what you were talking about, being able to communicate what you're channeling, what you're intuitively being able to see, makes sense. And also then you've got the spleen giving you that sort of gut feeling. Yeah. And I mean, while we're at it, we might as well talk about the G center, because that's all about life direction and purpose and like why you're here. So intuitively, you've got this capacity to be able to sense that, and that's connected to the G center, which is about life direction and purpose. Yeah. And then at the same time, you've got being able to channel and process information, and that comes out through the throat. Yeah. So, you know, how I'm describing it like that, that's not human design purist, but that's just like those centers, how they work.
Okay.
Now, what's super interesting with your chart is you are a classic projector. So of the three types of projectors, we've got energy projectors, classic projectors, and mental projectors.
Okay.
Now, the whole thing about being a projector is we don't have this source of our own consistent, defined energy from the sacral center. So if we had that, we'd obviously be a generator. So that's the square in the center near the bottom that you've got two gate activations. You've got the 29 and the 42 gate activated on your sacral center, but it's white, which means it's not defined.
Okay.
So that means that, you know, if you have that defined, you're a generator.
Okay.
Or a manifesting generator, and that's 70% of people.
Yeah.
Right. So that's those 70% of people. Then on the other end of the scale, we've got the reflectors who've got all the centers white. They're 1% of people.
Wow.
So that's them. Okay. So that leaves us like 29% or something. And then we've got the manifestors who have a motor connected to their throat, but they don't have the sacral. And they're like 8 or 9%, something like that. And then whatever's left over is us, the projectors.
Right.
So to understand that, I said the manifestor has a motor connected to their throat. We need to know what the motors are. And the really cool thing about your chart is you have everything defined except for the motors. So the 4 centers that you do not have defined are the motors, right?
0. Cannot paddle.
You're a motorless projector.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why my life is totally random. Oh, you broke up a bit. Okay, there you
For
go.
you, when I say, oh, you're a motorless projector, we'll go into it a bit more, but like, where does that feel resonant in you? Like, do you have some examples of where you feel that?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like, I feel like my life has no direct, like I'm not able to impose my will on anything in my life. It just seems to happen to me and then I react. And, you know, so when people are talking about, you know, in business, people are, or even like business coaches say, make a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. And I want to laugh at them thinking this is useless for me. And I realized since I found human design, why that was useless for me, why it never worked. Because I can't plan anything. So, you know, I think maybe there might be other projectors out there where, you know, we try to apply business logic and coaches that are for the whole world, and then they put everyone under the same banner, and it works for some, it doesn't for others. And it's not because we're not trying, it's because it doesn't work like that for us.
What I'm going to say is, if whoever's watching this on the replay, when you get to this part of the video, if you resonate with this thing about there are business coaching models that work for everyone else but just do not work for me, or they work for many other people but don't work for me, I'd love for people to comment, because I feel as a projector this is something that so many of us encounter, and unless we're blessed to have a coach that at least has some kind of intuitive understanding or some knowledge of something like human design, or I know nothing better than human design for this, you know, unless we're blessed with that, it means that, you know, we're being encouraged to do things that just don't work for us.
100%. And this is what I've seen in the last few months. And, you know, I've spent thousands on coaching for myself, again, trying to fix myself. And, you know, what I've then realized is actually I have to throw all of that away and I have to go with what feels right to me at the moment. So, you know, they're like, you have to post X times a week. You have to like always be in someone's face, and just always felt so alien to me. I didn't want to do that. So now I post when I want to, I go live when I want to, I channel, I don't prepare things, I read the energy of the group, and I just give readings. And that seems to work for me, and it goes against what everybody says.
This is powerful, and this is the thing, isn't it? Like, had you started that already before finding out you're a projector?
No, I was doing what they told me.
Right.
And wow. And I felt I'm not going anywhere, and I'm rowing the boat up a hill. And then I found this, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do whatever I feel in that moment. And I'm not going to do what they say because it doesn't work for me.
Shall we drop into 2 centers now and talk about how this experience really relates to those 2?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So it's the sacral is not, and it's really cool because it has its unique challenge, but the challenge is actually a gift and an opportunity, right? As always, you know, we know this in any kind of spiritual development pathway. Anytime you meet resistance or an obstacle or something shit or it's not working, therein lies the opportunity to get to know ourselves better and do things in a different way, right? Yeah. So not having the sacral center defined means that we are not generators. We do not have that life force, sacral energy, that sexual energy of like consistent, wake up in the morning every day. A generator wakes up in the morning. Now, of course, generators can get depressed, generators can get blocked. However, the generator has a certain amount of life force energy that needs to be used in that day. And guess what? Next day, they've got more. And for them, it's important that they burn up that energy. So, for example, generator kids, if you try and get a generator kid to go to bed before bedtime, it's a bad idea. Because they're still running about and they've got to burn off their energy, else they're going to be lying there in bed at night being frustrated because they haven't spent, and then we kind of want to medicate them and, blah, 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 blah. So we're different. We do not have that consistent, reliable energy to build something. The generator, the great builders. So what does that do for us? Well, it means that we end up having to figure out ways to get stuff done without any energy, especially you having none of your energy centers.
Yeah.
So how do we get shit done without those motors, that power behind it? How do we do that? Well, we have to learn how to work with systems is one thing that works really well for projectors. Work with guiding and directing the energy. Now, if you want to do something efficiently, who better to ask than someone who has no motors of their own? Because guess what? We have to learn how to do things efficiently because we can't just throw energy at something until it comes through. So this is where there's the symbiotic kind of relationship between the projector and the generator, where when it works, if the generator comes and says, hey, I've got all this energy, but I'm not getting the results I want, how can I be more efficient? Could you help me to be more effective with my energy? And then you're like, oh yeah, mate, yeah, of course, I'd love to do that. That's, and then starting to ask good questions, or even just through being in the field of the projector, the generator can then start to feel, oh, okay, it's okay to just like be still for a moment and then feel, where does my energy want to move? Oh, okay, I thought, the mind, the not self, that I had to do A, B, C, and D, but actually all I need to do is this thing. Oh, and then I'm enjoying that a whole load more. It's satisfying. So that's we can't talk about the sacral without really talking about the generator.
Yeah.
Now, that said, the fact that these centers are white, undefined, does not mean that you never have energy. Because the white centers are a bit like yin. They're receptive. They can amplify the energy that comes towards them.
Right.
So whatever energy someone brings towards you, whether someone's bringing a lot of emotional energy, that's that triangle, the totally white triangle over on the right.
Yeah.
Someone's bringing that emotional energy towards you. Someone's bringing, that there's that pressure to do something, the root energy coming towards you, the generator energy, the willpower energy, all of those you can amplify and clarify, and you're going to feel those things. And if you're plugged into a good energy source, it can be sweet. If you're plugged into a relationship with a generator that's totally in their not self, in their frustration, it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
If you're sleeping in bed next to a lover and they're emotionally defined, bad idea. They're having a nightmare, and all that emotional energy is going straight into your open emotional center.
I find it very difficult to sleep with someone near me. Obviously, you can't do that if you're in a relationship normally, but yeah, I can never sleep if there's not. As it is, I'm a very light sleeper. I can hear a mosquito. I can feel everything around me, even the energy of the earth. And a couple of days ago, something happened at 3 a.m. I can't tell you what happened, but I was just wide awake. And it was not a noise. It was some energy, and I can't tell you what it is. And I feel this in groups, and I feel it in people, and I feel it in countries and places. And people think I'm mad, but I can't explain it, but I feel it. And this is so difficult for me to explain to people because they think I'm being a drama queen, but I'm not. I just feel it, and I can't explain where it's coming from.
Well, now we can, right? Because we look at this chart, and there's also a distinction between, when you first look at a chart, you look at a center and you go, that one's colored in, it's defined. That one's white, it's not defined, right? And what defines the centers is the channels. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if we look at your G center, the yellow one, and we look at the brown triangle that's the spleen, there's a channel that's connecting them. And that's the 5710 or the 1057.
Yeah.
And part of that is red, and part of it is red and black. So the whole channel is in your red, you're unconscious, and then half of it is conscious. The 57 is conscious as well. all the gates on the spleen are to do with different fears.
Oh.
And you can start to explore the specific different fears that each one of those, and it's not that fear is a bad thing. This is being splenic. Like, I'm splenic too.
Yeah.
Being splenic is all about learning to navigate, learning to use that information from the fears to be able to be like, right, this is something I should definitely pay attention to, and this is something that, yeah, I can feel a bit of energy, but I'm just going to keep an eye on that particular thing. So it helps us stay safe. So why are we saying about that? Well, because the 10 and the 57 is a channel, and that channel allows energy to flow between those two centers, and that's what lights them up and makes them defined in the body graph.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got, in total, you've got 3 different channels. You've also got the channel at the top, which is the channel of awareness, the 6124. You've also got the channel of acceptance, which is the 1762, and the channel of perfected form, which is the 5710. And that's those are 3 channels that could be well worth learning about for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to go into them in a whole load of detail.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the emotional center, you'll see that it has not one single gate activated on it.
Yeah.
So what that means is that it's like, not only is it undefined, it doesn't even have any consistent energy anywhere on it. So you're totally open in the emotional center.
That has
So,
to be bad.
say again?
That has to be bad.
It's not good or bad. You see, it has a real, are you familiar with the gift of the open emotional center?
No.
Great. So what they say is, with these open centers or an undefined center, is you go to school in the undefined centers, you learn that center, you clear out your own not self to become available to be a guide. This is where you make your money.
Okay.
Because you can, once you've, like we were saying about how projectors can guide generators. Now, if you're living in your not self and you're trying hard, you're trying to do the 9-to-5 grind, you're trying to make yourself live as a generator or a manifester, and you're trying to make yourself, because you've been told that you work hard and get success, you know, then that's you being in your not self, and you can't guide anyone. You're not available to guide anyone because you're in your own trip.
Yeah.
However, each of these centers has a not self question.
Yeah.
Have you come across those ones?
Yes. I've heard
Right.
about the concept of it. Yes.
So the sacral is, how do I know when enough is enough?
Yeah. I don't.
It's like, yeah, you know what? I can't be bothered to do any more of that right now. Enough.
Yeah.
You know, and if you catch it earlier, it's easier. If you're like 3 hours in, or 5 days in, or 10 years into something which you've been working away at, and you passed that point of enough's enough a long time ago, it's harder to get out.
Yeah.
But this moment by this moment by moment thing of like, okay, enough. I'm gonna stop and wait and chill. Now, when you can do that, the more masterful you become at just knowing when enough's enough, then you're available to guide others. Then you're available. Only, not everybody, and only when invited, but then you're available because you have that clarity in yourself. And I find this a lot. Like, I've got 2 friends staying at the moment. My friend who's staying is a generator. Her daughter, I'm not sure, her daughter may be a non-energy type. But, you know, my friend's been traveling around Europe, and she was just able to be in, we didn't talk about it specifically, but just able to stop and rest and actually just really sleep in and lie in and, you know, like, chill.
Yeah.
And so it's not even that we have to tell people that they can feel it in the space around us. If we embody that, enough's enough, you know, enough, chilling. So that's the sacral center. The emotional center, the not self question there is, where am I avoiding conflict and truth?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So have you got any beans you care to spill on that one?
Well, I really hate conflict. I try to avoid it. And I think it came from in the past of trying to be a people pleaser. Happy to say I've gone past that, but only very recently. And I would try to do everything to not have a confrontation it would just kind of make me so anxious, even thinking about disagreeing with someone. I would do it, but then it would always somehow backfire on me. So then I became even more afraid of it. And then when you talk about truth, it seems to be my thing. I get very triggered because I can sense when people are lying. And this is not a good thing, by the way, because it makes my life very difficult, because everyone likes to have their own secrets. But the problem is I can hear it's like it's screaming at me. And, then it's very difficult for me to just try to hold back and not react. And I guess it's great in my intuitive work because I can see through everything. But most people in real life don't come to me for readings, and they don't care about my opinion. And that's what makes it quite difficult for me.
So what's the challenge? Like when you say it's difficult, it's because of the fear of...
Because, I could be having a discussion with someone. It could be a business negotiation. It could be just normal social life. And I can just... hear, I don't know how I receive this information, but I usually feel it, that this person is not telling me the truth, or this is not really the story. And, I'll try to say in a really soft way, because I can see what it is. And I try to get them to just say, look, listen, don't worry, we don't need to do this. And they just insist. And I just know they don't feel that. And there's no way for me to tell them, I know you're lying. It's in that way, I can say to people who come for a reading, I was like, by the way, you're saying this to me, but everything in your aura and your energy and what I'm getting is saying this is not really true. But in everyday life, if someone tells you something, you kind of have to take it as a given.
Well, let's slow. This is juicy. This is beautiful. This is amazing. So in your work where you have been, let's talk about invitation. You've been recognized and invited to give someone input.
Yeah. So for example, when they book a reading with me,
yep,
I have permission.
Exactly. You've got,
most of the time I don't.
I mean, there's a lot of people who do intuitive readings in the world, but for some reason they've come to you and they've felt, there's some recognition there. They're like, well, actually, I want to talk with you. And there's some money behind it. So there's some commitment. So it's like, right, I want to talk with you because I feel like you're the one who could help me with this, or I just want to know what you see. So right there, you have the invitation. So it obviously sounds like that's where you feel that you'll be able to see is a really powerful thing, right? So that works.
Yes.
Do you have an example of like a work? Would it be like with work projects where someone says, right, you're in a meeting, we're going to drive on with this work project, and you're like, I can see you don't believe in it?
So many. I was in Spain working for a company, and it was a private company. So, the boss is the boss who makes all the decisions. And so much of the stuff that we did was completely pointless. So we would have meetings upon meetings about nothing. And, a lot of the time, I can see, and of course I can't say this because it's a feeling like this project is just not going to work. You're wasting your time on it. But I don't have the authority or the platform to say this. Or I can see a particular route is just going to waste money because no one really cares about that aspect of this product, and you're not doing it in the right way. You're not selling it in the right way. But unless they say, okay, Simran, what is your opinion? I don't have the ability or the invitation to voice that. And then I get frustrated doing something that I know is not going to work. And then it doesn't work. So in that kind of sense, it's really difficult to be in a real life scenario where you just know you're told to do something that you know is not going to work. It's
wrong in so many ways, isn't it?
Yeah, because no one cares about your opinion. You're a tiny little clog in a big organization, and you're supposed to do it as you're told. And that's why this thing comes in with like authority. I always had this thing with authority where I was like, you have to earn my respect. You're not just given it. And people hate that. In hierarchical organizations, which most organizations are, there's a pecking order. And for me, it's like, I will only respect you if I feel you deserve it. But that's not how it works in the real world. And that's why it didn't really work in the real world very well.
Well, who knows what the real world is? That's the not self. That's the matrix. That's the the dysfunctional thing. And the great thing about human design is we can find other people that, because if you're the only one, you know it. But it's like, are all these people like they're all sleepwalking? Like how's this? I
just think because, it work? What I admire of a lot of people, but I wish I had more of, is just this ability to be docile. And I can be. I just have to work really hard at it. Not docile, not about being confrontational, but just about going along with things that you just don't believe in. Or maybe people just don't care that much and they just do it.
I don't know. Like, I'm listening. Can I be honest with you here?
Yeah.
Because anytime when you're saying you have to work really hard at something, right? Yeah. I'm a projector, you're a projector. Yeah. I'm here going, damn, this hard work thing doesn't sound like much fun.
Oh, it hasn't been fun, but I only realized I was a projector 6 months ago.
Right. So let's just slow down a second. So you said you got to work really hard at being more docile. Is that really your truth?
Well,
just take a moment, take a few breaths, and because I'm listening to you, and I'm like, you've got stuff to say. Yeah. You've got your spleen, you've got your intuition, you can sense, you can sniff out bullshit.
Yeah.
Do we need Simran to be more docile in the world?
You do if you want to keep your job.
Right, but this is the job that is, let's just recap. This is the job where not only are you not being recognized for being able to see, you could tell if someone asks you and invited you, you could say, let's do this and this, stop that, start this, do this. Yeah. You can guide it in a beautiful way. Yeah. Not only is your guidance not being you're not being valued and in your strength and your power, but you're also being then given the shovel and told to shovel the shit.
Right.
Which is even more, it's like, A, we don't need to do it. B, there's a better way. But C, you are supposed to work hard out of alignment because you're not a generator to do it. It would be frustrating if you're a generator, let alone as a projector.
Well, that's what I found frustrating. But
no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. So let's come back to this not self. Let's come back to your chart, right? So this is like how is this not self theme playing out? I think this one could be really juicy for you. And let's bear in mind that 50% of people have the emotional center defined. Okay, let's just pull your chart up again. Here it is. So 50% of people have. Is your chart showing there?
No, it's blank.
Let's see if we can try this one again. 50% of people have the emotional center defined, right? Mm-hmm. Simran's chart. Here it is. Oh, I know why it is. Let's just... And then, so that means the remaining 50% of people have it open or undefined, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, how many gate... We've already said you've got no gate activations on the emotional center. How many gate activations are there pointing towards it? Let's pull it up again here. Share chart. Do you get what I mean about a gate activation pointing towards it?
Okay, so we're talking about the emotional center, which is the triangle, opposite the spleen.
The one on the right, totally white. It's got 7 different gates, and none of the gates are activated.
Yeah, exactly. And your question was?
How many gates are pointing towards it, getting ready to make a connection?
1, 2, 3, 4, 7.
Well, there's 7 white gates, so we've got the 6, the 37, the 22, the 36, then we've got on the bottom the 49, 55, and 30, right? Now, all of those are undefined.
Yeah.
For your chart. Now, if one of those was defined, if we could add one activation and make a channel.
Yeah.
Like, can you see which ones? This is where we get into the chart. I've actually drawn your chart out as well.
Oh wow.
this is a really powerful thing to do. For anyone that's getting into human design, take some time to color it in and draw it out like this. And you can use colors as well if you want to. So I've drawn on your 3 channels. There's the channel at the top, the channel to the ajna, and then the channel connecting the G and the spleen. Yeah. And we can see that this center here, this emotional center, is totally open.
Yes.
Yep. And so can you see then that these 2 up on the throat, there's 2 gates that are activated that are pointing towards the emotional center.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. And this means there's potential for a channel to be formed.
Oh.
What it means is that if you're around someone or there's a current transit which actually there is, which can activate one of those gates, it means that you have access to some of that energy for that period of time. It's not going to last your whole lifetime, but it's going to be around for either a short time or a long time. It could be that you walk into a cafe and guess what? There's someone in the cafe with gate 36. And they might be someone who's got a fairly clear, you know, it may be a good energy, and you're in the cafe and all of a sudden it's like that 36 is active. And I'll give you a better example. Yeah. Can you see the gate 8 between your throat? There's the gate 1 on your G center and the gate 8 on your throat. So that 8-1 is a channel. So if we zoom in on that, we can see that gate 1 is activated on your chart, but gate 8 is not. But if you're trying to make a decision, you actually have split definition.
Yeah.
So if we look again at your, I'll just put 2 rings around it. If we look again, this is the best reason for drawing it out by hand. Split definition means, can you see that ring I've done around the top 3 centers? They're all connected.
Yes.
But they don't connect through to the G and the spleen. It's like 2 separate systems.
Yeah.
And this area that we're looking at here, in between the G center and the throat, is where bridging can happen. So if we pull that one back up again.
What can happen?
It's called bridging the split.
Oh, bridging. Okay.
Yeah, so imagine if you get gate 8, it's going to make that 8-1 channel and form that together. If you get gate 7 somehow, it's going to bridge your split. Now, what that means, there's 3 main ways that you can that can happen. One is if you're in a relationship of some sort with someone that has that gate. If you run someone's chart, you may find someone that you want to be entrepreneurial in partnership with, or it may be someone you feel some sexual chemistry with. You're kind of drawn towards them. It could be that they have the gate 8 or the gate 7.
Oh, that's fascinating. So anyone, well, that would help us like bridge or complete a particular channel. Are you saying there's some kind of attraction there?
Yes, because if you do the 2 charts and you overlay the charts, then it's like new channels get formed, and that's an electromagnetic attraction.
Oh, I see.
It doesn't mean that you have to spend your life with that person or that you should have start a business with them or anything. All it means is that you're going to feel that connection, and you and they may be drawn together from the aura. Right. Now, if they've got a split definition as well, and that's the same split for them, then you're going to bridge their split, they're going to bridge your split, and it's kind of, you feel this sort of sense of completeness. Split definition is the most common. I'm split as well. We're 46%.
And so split means like this black and white in the same.
Split definition is the 2 separate areas that I drew around with the circles.
Yeah.
If those were connected, you're single definition.
Okay, yeah.
And then you get some people who are triple split. So they're like, they've got 2 centers there, 2 centers there, and 3 centers there, all doing different things.
Wow.
You can even get people who are quad split, who've got 4 different areas of definition. And one of them said to me, it feels like being a walking Swiss Army knife.
Yeah. So none of the parts are really working together.
They can at certain times, but they need to experience these different parts of themselves. Yeah. So for me, I sometimes experience it as like, I feel like I'm trying to run in 2 directions at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do I bring those 2 things together? And relationship is important for split definitions. It's how we find wholeness. So the 3 ways the split can be bridged is 1, in a relationship of some sort over time. Could be a parent, could be a lover, or it could be a business, whatever kind of relationship, or a friendship.
Yeah.
The other way that it can be bridged is over a short period of time, you go into a space in the collective. They're called public-private spaces, like a library or a cafe, right?
Yeah.
So you've got a difficult decision to make. You part of you wants to go one way, part of you wants to go the other way. You don't know what to do. You go in the cafe, you sit there, you just tune into it and you wait. And if you feel some clarity, you write that down, and then that's your decision, and then you stick with it.
That is fascinating, because I find when I'm sitting at home trying to get something done, I can't do anything. I have to take myself out into a cafe, and then I can focus really well. And most people say, but isn't it super loud for you? I was like, no, I somehow feel comfortable being in the noise because I can focus. And it sounds weird, but I can do that.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, completely. It just clicked for me when you said that, why I feel like I have to go out to get my work done.
There's also another bridge gate that you have here. Can you see how the gate 20, if we zoom out a little bit?
Yeah.
That gate 20 is another one that can bridge from your, see the 5720 can bridge across to from the spleen right across to the throat.
Yeah.
So you've got 3 bridge gates. I looked at this earlier, and I just want to double check I haven't missed any of them. Yeah, the gate 7, gate 8, and gate 20 are your bridge gates.
Yeah.
So if someone has, now especially if they have it as a hanging gate, then that's going to create that attraction. I like to think of these hanging gates as a bit like, imagine the centers are islands.
Yeah.
And imagine, like, you know, you've got gate 31, which is like a road bridge over here trying to connect across to gate 7, but you've only built half of it, and the other half is waiting for the other half.
Yeah.
Then from the other island, you've got gate 1 that could be like a train bridge,
Yeah.
but the train can't get across because it's only half a bridge.
Yeah.
Then if someone else comes along that's got one or other of those, then it's like, oh, cool, we can now get traffic going across that bridge.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's when you start to put charts on top of each other. And it's actually really, you can get it on apps, but imagine, like, you know, if you have this sort of colored in scenario, you can then do that with the 2 charts in 2 colors and see how they fit together.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Now, the third way that a split can be bridged is through the current transit. So that's what's happening right now.
Right.
So, for example, right now, gate 22, if we go back to your emotional center, is being activated by Neptune.
Okay, what does that mean?
If you search the current track, well, it means it's actually going to be active for most of the next, I think it's till 2021 in March. It's active for most of it.
Wow.
So if you know, in astrology, when things go in retrograde, they go backwards and forwards. So it's sort of like this kind of the relative movement is like, you know, it's like it's going this way and then it's going back on itself and then it goes forward again.
And when did that come in? Was it like 3-4 days ago?
No, it's been, the 22 has been active for some time. I can't remember if it's still on, but actually 1222, the whole channel was active. It has been active either recently or currently. However, this gate 22 is going to be a chance for you to explore over these next years. All you do is just Google on the app, just go current transit and start to kind of have a look at it and see how it fits over your chart, because this gate 22 is going to form this complete channel here.
Wow. Okay.
So you may know, some people were saying they noticed kind of quite strong emotional energies being voiced, like, you know, anger being communicated, or, you know, these kind of things around them in the collective, because everyone has that channel when it's activated, whether they know it or not.
So we all have that channel in this particular transit?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're all feeling the same thing.
Yeah. So anyone born at this time must have emotional authority, right?
Yeah.
Because the emotional center is activated. So whoever's born at this time, it's going to be a whole bunch of people with emotional authority.
Wow. Okay.
Now, what does emotional authority mean? Let's come back to this polarity of either you have it defined, which means you have emotional authority, or you have it undefined, which means the not self question, where am I avoiding conflict and truth?
Yeah.
So how do those two things fit together? Well, what's the emotional wave? It's like, are you familiar with the emotional authority being like a wave that is very powerful?
Well, I didn't know that, but I mean, just seems intuitively how it is.
So 50% of people, emotional authority, they could be generators, they could be manifestors, or they could be projectors. And all of those types, there is no truth in the now. They're not designed to be spontaneous. We're splenic, so we're very good in the moment. Like you, me, I saw James has jumped on the call as well. He's splenic as well. So we're all about yes, no right now.
Yeah.
Is it a yes? Is it a yes? Is it a no? No, don't go there. Yes, no.
Countries in 2 days.
Say again?
I can move countries in 2 days.
Okay, you can do that. Yeah. Now the emotional authority people, we can be spontaneous as well. Emotional authority people are much more about waiting for clarity, and they're never certain because they have this big wave. It's like the ocean, the tides on the ocean. One day they might feel really good about it. The other day they feel a bit deflated about it. And that energy is always flowing and ebbing, and it's complex and colorful. Now, at one time it might be anger, at one time it might be sadness. And when if someone with emotional authority is making a big decision, they are advised to wait some time. Because, I mean, I don't want to get political, but Donald Trump has emotional authority. Wow. And everyone was very afraid that he would do something rash on an impulse.
Yeah.
I mean, fortunately, it seems mostly what he does is send out tweets.
Yeah.
But that thing of like, something's happened, it's created a response. You're either angry or you're bullish or you're excited or you think it's, but don't take action just there. Wait for the invitation, not wait for the invitation, wait for the emotional wave to ride itself out, right? So, if you were advising that.
Right, that was the whole thing about going to bomb Iran and then saying, no, just kidding, I'm not doing that anymore.
Exactly, you can see it. It's like, it's not consistent. It changes. Yeah. So it's important to not make big decisions based on just that impulsive moment for the emotional person.
Right, which I'm not.
We are not.
Okay.
You're not, I am not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what does that actually mean? Because it seems very cold to be unemotional.
Well, we actually amplify the feelings of the people around us, especially you, with it being totally open.
Yeah.
So we go into a space and, some people call it being empathic. We feel all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, our work to do, our not self is, where am I avoiding conflict and truth? Now, deep inside us, we've been conditioned to be nice, to not rock the boat. In many cultures, it's stronger for women than it is for men. Women should be nice and pretty and not be too, don't cause any trouble. You don't want to be a crazy woman, but for men as well, it's press it down, suppress it down. Now you can see what's going on, and you can feel when someone emotionally is out of alignment, they're out of whack. You feel that.
Yeah.
And all that energy comes towards you, that emotional energy, and you naturally can clarify and crystallize that energy in order to, it's like, but the flip side is you actually even amplify it. So there may be a bunch of people with this emotional stuff. They're sitting all these like frustrations. Fred hates Susan, and Susan's intimidated by Joe, and Stephanie's got a crush on Bill, and there's all these emotions under the surface, unspoken. You walk in the space without even saying a word, it all goes off. Wow. It erupts. And they're like, Simran, we were fine until you came in. You brought all this emotional stuff. And it's like, well, no.
Just said explains everything. So I if my friend Molly is going to watch this at some point, which I'm going to show her, this was, the way you just explained this is how she explained it to me a year ago when a situation like that happened. She's like, you walked in and everyone's lights just went up, but not in a good way. And I just walked in the room and everyone had a word. And I could feel it, and she could feel it too, because she's also very empathetic.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I didn't do anything. She's like, no, but they all went like that.
We're powerful. We're so powerful just in our aura. We don't have to even open our mouth as a projector. Now, if you're around people that want to get to the bottom of it, you're around people that go, oh my goodness, wow, I'm feeling all this stuff. Can you help me? Amazing, powerful invitation, recognition. But if people are mostly people in the matrix, or in their not self, they're in denial of what they're even feeling.
Yeah.
You know, you can feel it in a business meeting when someone's out of integrity, or they're full of shit, or they're not in alignment with, you know, their truth. But people lie to themselves so habitually that, you know, and if they don't want to look at that stuff, you can see why us projectors get ignored a lot.
Totally.
You
and
know,
also why they then turn on you to say, oh, you're out of line, blah, 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 blah.
You made me feel like this,
Yes.
or yeah, we were fine. We were fine until you walked in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were fine. We were doing just fine, pretending none of this was happening. And now you're here and it's like, it must be your fault.
Complete story of my life.
Well, looking at your chart, we can see why, because it's totally white. It's totally open. And there's only even 2 gates pointing towards it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, now, when you know, this is going to be the work of your lifetime, probably one of the works of your lifetime continually. Where am I avoiding conflict and truth? And as you get better and better and better at it, it's going to be more subtle. There's going to be little things that you're avoiding. So
when
that,
you say that, what does that actually mean? So this is the theme I'm supposed to work on. So I'm avoiding truth and conflict. So what is the way for me to develop this?
Awareness, pure awareness. You're going to be, and if you know someone's chart, it can help, right? If they're emotional authority, you may find that you're pussyfooting around that person and compromising your truth and doing things that you don't believe in, going against your authority, which is your spleen is going, nah, I don't want a bar of this. This is ridiculous. Your spleen, it's not even saying that much. Your spleen's just saying, nah, don't go there.
Yeah.
And then your mind is going, I don't want to be part of this.
Right.
Not you know, your ajna, you know, it's like you're not, I'm not talking about not self mind. I'm talking about the ajna is giving you that information saying this is a bad idea.
Right.
But if you're in your not self, in your conditioning, you'll go along with it because you don't want to rock the boat.
In my life, yeah.
So what to do? Well, first of all, become more aware, and you can be like, I can feel this feeling, like every part of me doesn't want to do this, but I'm more afraid of upsetting this person than I am of the bad consequences of going ahead with this thing I know is wrong.
Yeah. 100%.
Right. So this is this open center, and this is now the more you can become clear in there, the better. Now, how does it play out? If you've got 2 people that have got, because if you think about 2 people in a relationship, let's say they've both got the undefined emotional center. So both of them are going to want to be avoiding the conflict and truth. They're both going to be a little bit pussyfooting around each other, maybe not asking for exactly what they want because they're afraid the other person might get rejected, or it's this kind of like intuitive sort of let's try and sense what the other person wants kind of game.
Yeah.
Then you've got the next one is where you've got both people who've got the emotional wave running, and it can get quite spicy because they're like angry and they're sad, and then they get excited and they're a bit depressed, and it's a bit like, you know, it's there's a lot of emotional energy there. And that can be fireworks which may or may not get resolved, or it might all be suppressed. Then we get the situation where there's one person who's got the emotional wave and the other person who's undefined, and the way I feel it in myself is like I have ultimately got the fear that I'm going to be destroyed by this person's emotional wave. I'm afraid that if I do the wrong thing, if I say the wrong thing, if I'm too honest, if I do a certain behavior, that this person is going to like go raw and I'll get destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah, been there as well.
And to notice that fear and to go, oh shit, I'm terrified. That's how it works for me. It's like I'm afraid of this and I'm compromising myself.
Okay, so that's exactly what I'm asking. So when you feel that like ickiness or fear or what, like terror, what are you supposed to do? You say you're supposed to be aware. So are you supposed to step away? Are you supposed to like take a break? What is supposed to happen in practical life?
Yeah, well, guess what? You've got this really cool, unique guidance system in human design, right? What's your authority?
Yeah, splenic.
It's splenic.
Yeah.
So you do whatever you do.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It's not about, you see, if you ask me for a strategy, that's external authority.
Yeah.
You know, and I could give you a strategy which could be write down what you're afraid of. Say, I'm afraid this person might destroy me.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that I might lose my job.
Yeah.
And I use something called the work of Byron Katie for that kind of thing, where I, take it to inquiry. That's not human design, but it works really well with human design for me.
Well, theta healing is the same. You go to the end fear and then you clear it.
Yeah, you can start to kind of self-inquire but it's all about awareness. It's not about a set of rules to follow. It's about trust your spleen to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And you can kind of play the edge a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like there may be, like, you may go into it, there may be a business situation, and your absolute truth might be to say to the director, you're full of shit, you know it, and this is never going to work. That's radical honesty, and that you may not be ready for that. I'm not ready for that. Yeah. But there may be a place in there where to say, this doesn't feel good to me and I can't be part of this. If we decide to go that way, I can't be part of this.
Yeah, I guess this is why a lot of maybe projectors work for themselves, maybe, because, you can't do that in an organization. You have a job, you have to do what you're told. So you can't say, oh, I don't feel this is the right thing to do, because they'll say, we don't care about what you feel. Do it.
Well, then the question goes, well, how can I work in a place that doesn't care about what feels right to me?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some powerful things, right? If someone in a crazy organization stands up and says, I can't do this. This doesn't, or not even I can't do it. This doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
This does not feel right. Imagine if 10% of people in all the world started just to be honest about that and say, this doesn't feel right to me, what we're doing here. And then if the boss says, I don't care, you've got to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I can't work in a place that doesn't, I'm really sorry. I'd love to give you what you want, but I can't, because it just doesn't feel, you see how much sovereignty and power there is in that.
Yeah, but guess what? Guess why I've left so many jobs.
Okay, but what about if everyone does that? Then who are they going to find to do that stupid work that doesn't need doing in the first place? No one's going to be able. You know what I mean? There's so much power, and people will talk about it. And this isn't your concern. Your concern is you.
Yeah.
But people talk about it in the office. Oh, what happened to Simran? Why did she leave?
Yeah.
Oh, well, she just said to the boss she couldn't do this because it didn't feel good. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you know what? It doesn't feel good to me either. Why are we doing it?
I've been in that situation. I actually spoke to this girl a few days ago. I had left an organization 8 years ago. And we were in a similar situation, and I was the one who left because I ethically just thought you can't treat me like that, but anyone like that. And she stayed. She's still there. And we had pretty similar circumstances, but I just couldn't stay there.
So let's come back to you, because human design isn't about trying to change the world. Human design is about living true to you. And if people inspired, great. So the decision you made, did it, this is the experiment. You made that decision. It didn't feel good. Did that feel like a good decision?
I told myself at that point, because that was like 12 years into a similar pattern where I just kept leaving, working in banking, doing stuff that sometimes it was amazing. A lot of the time I just felt, just do it, because I was in my head. And since then I've struggled, not because I can't do the work, just because I always feel insecure. I always feel like I'm going to mess up somehow. It's this fear running through me that I'm just going to fail. and it becomes, in a way, a self-fulfilling prophecy where then I end up failing. And which has led me to my current life's work, which is always about fixing myself, and now I can show other people how to fix themselves. So yeah, I have to say, it's been a journey, but I feel a little bit better knowing that maybe other people who feel similar to me at some point.
Yeah, we've been going pretty hard on this open center, not self thing of where am I avoiding conflict and truth. And, you know, there are going to be a lot of people, like, think about this. Half of projectors are emotional authority. The rest of us are like splenic. We're self-projected. We're ego projected. We're mental projectors, all these different kinds of authority. And for all of us, like, basically any authority that's not emotional authority has the emotional center undefined. Okay. So for all of us, and that's going to be a lot of people watching this, where do we avoid conflict and truth? And, you know, just because you notice, just because you're aware of that, doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're never going to avoid conflict and truth again. Mm. And it could be that you don't say something because it doesn't feel appropriate to say it, even though you can see what's going on. So yeah. it's you know, we're not talking about live your life like this always. It's not saying you always have to say exactly, you always have to be honest with people, you always have to call them on their shit. It's not that at all. That's not what it is. It's saying, where are we avoiding conflict and truth, and can we get more aware of that? That's all it is. And it's so powerful.
How does that fit in with the classic projector? So
let's come back to that. That's a really good timing on that question. So you do not have any of the motors, right?
Yeah.
So we've talked about the 4 white centers are all motors. You have no motors defined. However, you do have some definition below the throat. You've got below the throat, you've got the G and you've got the spleen. Now, if you have either one of those or both, but none of the motors, then you're a classic projector.
Okay.
And James has got the same. He's got the same thing. He's a splenic classic projector. Yo, James. And what it means is that the third type is the mental projector. Mm-hmm. So the mental projector is totally open below the throat.
Okay.
So they're the same as you in that they have no motors, but they don't have the spleen, so they don't have that gut sense of safety and danger, and they don't have the G center. Ron's coming on the next call. He's self-projected, so the G center is his authority, right? Oh, wow. But so he's a classic as well.
Yeah.
Classic projectors are always either splenic or self-projected.
Okay.
So their authority lives in either the spleen or the G center. So mental projectors have no motors and nothing below the throat. You have centers below the throat, but no motors.
Yeah.
So energy projectors, most projectors are energy, or energy projectors are definitely the most popular category. So for example, I have the root defined and I have the will defined.
Oh.
So that's the will is the funny, unusual shaped triangle, and the root's down at the bottom. So I have 2 motors. So it means that I can use those motors to move me forward. And the will center earlier was the first center I was like, yeah, she's talking about open will. Do you remember when you were saying that you were taught you had to push to get things done, but you didn't have the willpower for it?
Well, I would do it. Like I don't know if this is, I've talked myself into it, but usually when I decide to do something, I just do it. It doesn't mean that I can stay the course because I realize I'm not seeing any fruits of my labor. But if I start something, I go into it 1,000%. And then I somehow seem to drift off because I was like, I'm running this sprint and I'm actually not going anywhere.
And as projectors, our theme is success, right? So we also, I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm always monitoring, is this course of action getting me where I want to go?
Yeah.
And we can sense, you know what, I'm putting energy in here, but I don't feel like I'm going to get a return.
Exactly.
Now, the will is a motor. It's called the will, the ego, or the heart. And the will is a really interesting motor. It's 30% of people have it defined.
Oh.
Now, I'm an energy projector and I have it defined. You and James on this call, or Ron who's coming on next, do not have it defined. Yeah. Melissa has it defined. She from memory is an emotional projector. We were talking about that definition in the emotion. I hope I'm right there. But anyway, and someone with an emotional projector has the emotional center.
Yeah.
Now, I've got the will, and the will is all about following through on promises. It's the consistent capacity to deliver on promises. And the question is, do I have the willpower for this? Yeah, I've got the willpower for this. Okay, I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to make it happen. And that act of saying, I'm going to make this happen, for me is very healthy, because then it's like, I don't know how, I don't know where the energy is going to come from, but if I'm in integrity and alignment, I'm going to make this happen, I will. Now, the not self theme for 70% of people with this undefined is making promises that is not appropriate to make.
Yeah.
So for you to say, hey, I'm 100% in, and I'm going to give it my best shot, and I'm going to have a go, it feels good, right? It's true.
Yeah.
For you to say, I'm going to get this result come hell or high water, is out of alignment. And it actually puts physical strain on the heart to feel the obligation to follow. Like, it's not appropriate for you to make promises and feel you have to follow through.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I have the voice of my mom saying, you never follow through, you never follow through. You know, but for me, I was like, when I start something, I really try to give it my best. But then I see, oh, the ship is not moving at all. And I'm still paddling, but I'm not moving. And then I say, well, what's the point of this? But to the outside world, it looks like I don't have any commitment. But that's actually,
well on, isn't it? It's exactly it.
And I don't know what to do with that. I mean, we have to commit to things in order to, I guess, to try to get some forward movement.
This is the dance. This is the dance, right? This is the dance of the and it's not to say what's right and wrong in abstract, but it's to be aware of this center. And you know, you look at your truth. You have 4 open centers. So your truth is, hey, I'm in. This sounds fun. This sounds good. I'm in. I'm 100% in. But your version of being in could be, I'm in, and I'm waiting to see where the next wave of energy is going to come from. And right now, there's no energy. So I'm in, but I can't make this happen. I'm in, but I'm sort of not sure if maybe I'm sort of wavering. I'm not sure if this is going to work.
Yeah.
But let's see, you know, where's the energy going to come from?
Yes.
Is there some energy to move it forward? It's not about you trying to manufacture energy out of thin air to move it forward, to finish it off because you made a promise.
Yeah.
So undefined, and it also can manifest as being competitive. Yeah. Maybe you could find that in your past, that you don't seem to have that vibe right now, but I'm sure.
Because I've given up on that. It was just too tiring, but I have been very competitive.
And was that in the workplace, or was that in
work, in school, in tennis teams? I was on every school team, you know, run, win. But I've given up.
Did you win? Were you successful?
Yeah, I did actually.
Yeah.
And then as the older I got, I just thought, okay, I'm still applying the same drive, but I'm not moving. And that's what has been a source of a lot of frustration.
It's a very interesting thing when you learn to see people who've got the undefined will trying to compete.
Yeah.
You know, they're at such a disadvantage compared to someone that has and it's an unfair competition, really, when someone's got the will center. And when you have the defined will center, for me, I can feel when someone's trying to, like I was in a community with a very powerful, very, very strong woman who came in, and she was copying everything that I did. And I was just looking at her and I was like, you can do that if you want to, but it doesn't seem true. It doesn't look right. It doesn't like, it's like you're wearing my clothes. You're kind of like, it doesn't suit you. It's like, it's not you, you know? And she was trying to like match me on everything. And I'm like, undefined will.
Yeah.
It's like, you can chill. It's okay. You can do that if you want to, but yeah,
but that's funny now, because now actually I'm the opposite. Like I don't want any competition. Like, it doesn't feel good. I actually don't. I think I have a different understanding about competition now, is that we actually can't compete with anyone because we're all unique anyways. But I didn't always think that.
This is, I mean, it's competition's a weird thing, isn't it? Like if you know, yeah, totally. We could look at your incarnation cross here.
Yeah.
You've got the cross of Maya, haven't you? How are you doing for time? I got to get going sort of by the end of the half hour, I think.
Yeah, whenever you're happy to stop, I can stop.
Yeah, it feels like if we do your profile and incarnation cross, like for me, that just feels so like that whole what I get totally clearly with you is you waiting for the energy, just waiting.
I just don't know how projectors do this. I mean, what are we supposed to do while we're waiting? How are we supposed to, we can't make things happen. So how do we live our life? Like,
I'd ask a different question. I'd say, imagine in your life, there are going to be some moments where there is going to be an amazing opportunity for you. And these could be once in a lifetime, the big ones, once a year, the medium ones. These amazing invitations that could come your way, where you could really change the course of your life and other people. And of course, as a projector, we're about the other person. So my question is, where will you be when this potential invitation comes around? Because if you're trying to do what you think you have to do, or you're, oh my God, I've got to do this because I need money to pay, I don't know, whatever, or I've got to do this because I'm supposed to be doing something, or whatever it might be.
Right.
You're doing something. Well, there's the invitation, but you weren't available. See what I mean? It's like looking at it from the other side, rather than, oh, I've got to wait, I don't like waiting, how am I supposed to live, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, what if you miss that amazing opportunity that's just around the corner? Like, what if that opportunity is waiting for you to be truly available and ready?
This is what I find so difficult, because as you said, projectors, we still have to live, we still have to pay bills, we still have to survive. And we might be waiting around for this one in a lifetime opportunity, but what happens for the rest of the time?
I got something here. Is my audio on? I guess it is.
Yeah. I hear you.
So I got home at 1 o'clock, totally forgot about this, and then, I don't know, 2 o'clock, 2:30 my time, it was like, oh, I checked Facebook and I saw you guys were in here. It's like, well, okay, I'm still up. I'll watch for a little while. And then guy downstairs who's putting on a music venue, he called me as I was listening to you guys. So it had to be, it was about that venue thing important. So I had to jump off, and anyway. So I missed all of it, most all of it. You're a splenic projector, right?
Yes.
And I just wanted to throw in just a basic, and here again, I don't know if you guys touched on this, but you asked the question that being that splenic projector, if you're all, especially with I'm trying to remember what your chart looked like, but you got the head and ajna both lit up.
Yes.
Down to the will center, right?
Yes.
So with it,
do I know? I don't have will, do I? No.
Jimmy, Simran has all the centers defined apart from the motors. So she's a classic projector, the same as you.
Yeah, but she's got the will center. Is it the will center?
No, the will's a motor. She does not have the will defined.
So what's the diamond one called?
The G. She's got the G center defined, the yellow G.
So with them three lit up, the thing that I would say is that if you're all busy up in your mind and trying to do this and trying to do that and trying to do all this stuff, that splenic awareness that you have, you'll miss it. That spleen is a very subtle body deal, and when you're up in your mind, you won't find it. So when things come up, decisions to be made, If you're making them with your mind, you're following somebody else's path. It's not your path. It's not your soul path per se. So the suggestion that I have for everybody, I have an open head and a defined ajna down to the throat. And I got an ADD mind, twirl. It was something I had to really, really get a handle on, because when you're up there twirling, you miss that body awareness, that spleen. And so yeah, that's the one main thing that I mention to people, that yeah, get out of your damn head and get more centered into your body. So when things do come up and you have decisions to make, you'll know in the moment right now. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just there. And when you're sitting there kind of waiting for these things, the ideal deal is to find things that you enjoy doing that's really not considered work.
Yeah.
In your, I mean, when you're enjoying doing something, it's not really work, whether you're getting paid for it or not. But if you start doing things that you really enjoy, that's going to affect that aura, that frequency, that energy, to where you're going to start kind of attracting more things. The more that you make splenic awareness decisions, heart, soul path decisions, those synchronicities are going to start coming up. And slowly but surely, you're going to attract to you things that you're kind of almost destined to, if you're on the right track, if you're on the right decision-making process. But yeah, the problem is how in the hell do you make enough money to survive, to eat, to do that?
Have the luxury to do that. I mean, I 100% agree with what you just said. Like, go with what you love to do, and if you do what you love, you will project this higher vibration, which 100% I agree with. And I do a lot of what I love, and something that comes easily to me now, because I read people for a living, which actually I find easy for the first time in my life. And my challenge is this waiting, I still have to survive. And the way that I survive now, since I've been cut off from the corporate world, is this, I don't have a motor, so I can't project myself. I can't make people do things. I can't do sales. And it feels really weird because, it's very hard to sell yourself when you're the product. And that for me is the challenge of a projector who has no motor. It's like this waiting around and still surviving. It's the paradox, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like that for all of us motorless projectors,
Yeah.
And Jimmy, Simran's just 6 months in to the experiment, so it's.
Oh man, there you go. Right? There you go, fresh down the rabbit hole. It does. Let me just tell you this though. It does get easier. It's basically the deal of making, so where you're at right now in your life, as probably most all of us before we, hit into human design, most all your decisions have been based on your mind.
Yeah.
And based on what everybody else has told you, how, what, why, and all that kind of stuff. But when you get to the point where you can start doing the yes and no, and I personally just think that the splenic projector deal is just a lot better than many of the other ones. Of course, I'm biased because that's what I have, but
yeah.
But it does get better because once you start getting on your own path, following your own destiny per se, that like I said, invitations will start coming in for work, for friends, for whatever. But here again, a lot of invitations will come through, and you have to decide whether it's right for you or not. And that's the deal. Your mind is going to basically try to talk you out of, if you can get to the point where you can sense that splenic hit, and it's really like, you know, intuition. We have intuition,
Yeah.
intuitive, yeah, in the moment. Anyway.
You're 100%, you're 100% right. Like a lot of times I talk myself into situations because it's the right thing to do. This is a great opportunity on paper. And that could be for friendship. It could be for relationships. It could be for work. But then for some reason, I'm not in 100%, but I talk or have been talking myself into it.
Right.
And now, so what you just said about your mind going over your intuition, I have been doing a lot of that, and now I'm aware of when I'm doing it. And I realized every single time I went against my gut instinct, which actually is based on nothing. That's why I use my head, because most people say, does that sound logical to you? I was like, no, actually, you're right, it doesn't. And then I go against myself.
And then, and another thing, so I've been into this since 2005. I really started studying it, but I've been living my design since the 70s. I'm one of the rare people. I'm one of the rare people that I figured out. And as you can tell right here, it's what, 3:32 a.m. I'm an indirect light person. I've always worked nights, and I've gone against everything everybody has told me.
Yeah, you know, this is another thing. We don't have time, but if you guys could point me in the way, where this whole indirect light thing, how you're supposed to eat, where do you get that information from?
You got to pretty much pay for it.
Okay, who? Like, where do I go for that?
There's different people that, there's quite a few different people that,
you have to get a reading. It's not like you put in some numbers and it comes up on a screen. Okay.
There used to be 2 sites that had a bit of free information in there, but that was a year or 2 ago, and I went looking for a friend of mine, and now you have to pay to get that.
Yeah, because I saw someone had put up something on the Facebook page called 64 Elements. I don't know what that is, but some people were talking about that when someone was asking, what should my diet be according to my, human design? And I found that really interesting, because that's an aspect I haven't looked into. And when you were thinking about indirect light, I realized I come alive at night. And
see.
And I have I can't sleep until earliest, like 1 a.m. if I'm trying to be good, because my mind is super active, and I suddenly have all these ideas and I want to explore stuff. Whereas in the morning, I'm much slower.
Well, one thing I could suggest, if you're in the projector page, as well as the VIP room, you might go up there and ask if somebody has that the advanced Jovian archive MM1 program. Ask them if they might be able to run it, and so you can at least see what it says. Johnson, you know what I'm talking about on that.
We have 2 groups. Simran, I think you're in the more down the line Facebook group for projectors, the one with the unicorn escaping from the carousel.
Yeah.
James, I don't think you're yet in the VIP lounge. So James runs the VIP projector lounge. It seems to be a bit more underground. It doesn't come up in the searches easily.
Yeah,
and for me, the thing I love about they're both very useful. The one that you're in, there's a guy called Cohen in there, and he's got a really long thread running where you can put in your birth data, and he will generate an advanced chart for you.
Oh, cool. Okay, amazing.
So if you just scroll down, it's normally within the top 10, and he's got a picture of the advanced chart. It's like purple and blue, and it's got different symbols. So you could get an advanced chart. And
I would always suggest. I tell most everybody thinks that you really should get into a point to where you're kind of into human design for a while before you get deeper and deeper and deeper. But if you're thinking you might be an indirect light person like I am, it might help a lot just to understand read, you know, read that.
Yeah, that's the thing, because, you know, for example, I like it to be sunny outside, but if I'm out for too long, I feel like I'm melting, literally melting. And they're like, oh, but you're brown and you don't understand. But they don't understand. Actually, my skin bubbles in the heat.
Oh my God! There you go.
Like,
Well, you
you
know,
have dark skin. This is in your head. I was like, would you like to see my skin bubbling? And so I cut. So when you said that, it just somehow like ping, 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 it came to me. I was like, oh, I need to figure out what this guy is saying, because I have brown skin, but it like seems to like erupt in the sun, and I come alive at night.
Pause, Simran. Just pause right there. You know what James is saying about your mind and your spleen?
Yeah.
You've already got the answer.
Yeah.
You've already got the answer.
Yeah.
It's done. And then the mind wants to understand, right? So the question is, are you wanting to get more information for the mind to have more stuff to go around? Or do you already know what you need to know to live your life in alignment with you? You see, this is the beauty of coming back to strategy and authority. Now, if you want to see the advanced chart and you see some things and it's like, oh yeah, that confirms what I already know, that's cool. But that's all outer authority. You see what I mean? It's like my chart says I should do this, my chart says I should do that. And if you're trying to live even just your regular human design chart according to what should be happening, it's a mind fuck.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas if you're backing your strategy on authority, you know, that one thing that James said, am I making this decision from my mind, or am I still enough to be able to hear that quiet voice of my spleen? That's it.
And that's where we have I believe we have the advantage. I mentioned that I've been living I pretty much lived my life according to human design since the 70s. And how I did that was by following my intuition and not listening to everybody that is programmed my mind. I did what feels right. And that is something that a splenic person can really get a handle on. But as he just said, though, the problem with that mind, though, is that mind will override. And the one last thing I wanted to put in there was that even once you get to the point to where, you know, you're following that splenic hit, and you're just, you know, and things are starting to line up for you, that pesky ass mind is going to try to talk you out of stuff that, I mean, it still does that today for me all these years later. It's like, I'll get a splenic hit, my mind's going, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy? No, that ain't, no, you don't want to do that. Man, you're going to have to do something.
Yeah.
Or when I get a no, my mind's going, oh yeah, but wouldn't it be fun? Come on, maybe you should. And that's the whole thing about this human design deal, is that once you learn what that yes and no is, and learn when the mind chirps in, we actually have to get control of our minds to, we need to be able to know when the mind is actually trying to take control versus that body that's splenic hit. And that's an ongoing process. And so good luck with all of this.
Yeah, you're right. I do kind of try to I get lost in the brain candy of the mind, because I find it fascinating, because I think that my mind is always super active. But yeah, you're right. I guess I do have the answers, and it's like this looking for this outer, almost permission that, oh, you can just stay awake late at night when everyone is asleep at 10 because they wake up at 6 a.m. And because that's what successful people do. This is like all from the outside. And, you know, successful people, Obama, all the people in history who've been the leaders have been waking up at 5, they have a morning routine. And so that's where my brain gets these other signals saying, oh, you should be more like them.
You know what was really interesting to me there, Jimmy, you jumped on, you know, the tail end, and you pretty much described exactly what Simran was talking about, her growing, you know, coming into the world and being taught you have to go out and do this to be successful and da 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 da, and exactly what you were saying. Now, you know, let's be kind to ourselves with this whole thing with like the conditioning. It doesn't just go away like that. It's a process that takes time. Now, if you want to help that process along, one, you can follow your strategy. Two, you can follow your authority. So really learning to listen to the spleen. Even those things, do that consistently for 7 years, you're going to be way ahead of anyone that's spent time getting advanced readings and learning all about the gates and all the things of human design. No, you followed your strategy and authority for 7 years. You are going to be way ahead. Now, if you want to do one more thing, you can start to debug the open centers. Now, what that means is you pick a center, and for a week, you ask yourself the question, where am I avoiding conflict and truth? You journal it at night. Oh, today, where did I avoid conflict and truth? Oh, yeah, I needed to say something about that person, but I didn't. Okay, cool. And then every day for a week. Then the next week, you go on to the will. Where am I acting like I have something to prove? And then at the end of the month, you start again, and you go round those 4 again and again and again. You do that for 12 months, it's going to shift things. You're going to start to be able to spot where the mind is coming into those open centers, because life is lived in the body.
Yeah.
And just because you have those centers open, you've still got them. You're still there with the capacity to inhabit that space, and your intuitive, empathic, open ways can become more and more blissful and joyful the more you're in the body waiting for the spleen to tell you what to do.
And in the meantime, it gives your mind something to do.
Ask good questions.
I was like, 7 years, really? Is there no shortcut to this? Is there no
It's a process. Some people pick up on, and here again, it depends on how radical, this is one of the terms they use, if you radically follow your strategy and authority, that you will see results a lot faster than people that don't. And this is the whole deal of living, of being the information, and not just continuing to add data and add data. Us projectors, we love systems, we love data.
Yeah.
But we have to learn, we all have to learn that information is just data. And and if you don't live it, it just stays data. You know, that's all it is. It's mind candy. It's mind fluff. And I just happen to notice here that we bring that 22 to her, don't we? This little trio, we have the solar plexus lit up.
Right. None of us have emotional authority, but both James and myself have gate 22.
Oh.
So if you run a relationship chart for either James and you or myself and you, then we get an extra center lit up, at least one extra, maybe others, but at least one extra center. So you can have 2 people who don't have emotional authority, but then in the relationship, in the dynamic, it can be colorful because that center gets defined through those 2 gates.
So, and speaking, if there was someone else that didn't have that, would they feel left out, or is that what it means?
Well, if they're in this unit, they will feel it.
Yeah.
You know, it's that unit thing. It's that combination of the auras, which brings up a thing that I just wanted to mention. I was going to type it out, but my spleen said no. But so when we were on that last one, I got a kick out of listening to that 2 hours that we went through. And because I had just kind of gotten up, you know, I was just kind of not mentally on, you know, yeah, I just wasn't really crisp and clear. But anyway, after listening to it, I was going through what I was feeling through that whole thing, and I was laughing at myself because at first hour I kind of sat back and just listened and listened and listened and listened, and I had stuff that I kind of wanted to say, but I didn't. And I was kind of laughing at myself going, and then when I realized that we had I was sitting there with your motors and Melissa's motors firing me up. And then finally, after I kind of woke up a little bit, an hour into it or so, that's when I finally chimed in, and then you couldn't hardly shut me up. So I was riding, and just it brought up in my mind just how much you pick up on an aura of two people when you're on a call like this versus when you're actually one-on-one, in the same space. I'm just curious how much we pick up on the other people's charts in a Zoom meeting like this. Do you have any ideas on that, Dunson?
I tell you what I experience is the intensity of focus with us talking, with the three of us talking. It's like there's this real focus into, like I've been focused with Simran, like intense here, and now it's like, and then I'm like, right, I'm focusing on James, and it's like, that's what I'm noticing is that kind of, it's like, how do projectors come together as a group? It's a very interesting thing because we're all very one-on-one. So I definitely find these calls very energizing, and I feel, and I hadn't picked up on that till you mentioned it, that, last time we had 2 energy projectors and 1 classic. Right now we've got 2 classic projectors and 1 energy projector, but we've got that extra energy center defined, right?
Right.
For example, your 2 charts, you're both classic, but in your composite chart, there's a motor defined.
Right. So I find that quite interesting with these Zoom things, to just sit in here once again, just observing what I'm feeling, and this is the one thing that is good for this, is that once you get to the point where you start understanding what your energy is, how you feel when you're by yourself, other than the neutrino field, the little subtle differences every day on that. But then when you come in contact and you start, get into a group, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or whatever it is, to be able to feel what you feel like in that group, and for us projectors, it's always interesting to, especially, and this is the great thing about this, is we get to see the charts, and we get a little bit of an understanding why I feel different when I'm talking with this person, than with this. And as you said, for us projectors, when you put 3 projectors together, all of a sudden, man, you're like ping-ponging back and forth instead of what we're really good at is one-on-one.
Yeah. And apparently, I mean, you guys know way more than me, but apparently, the projector, if you're a projector and you're in a group, normally that's not good if you're with obviously energy types. But if you're outside the group looking in, that somehow we can handle that. We can't.
I want to speak on that one because it's different, but the way it works is with being a projector, like if I'm talking to a group of people, like I gave a talk to 100 people about human design, right?
Yes.
So, but I'm very like a generator. It would make sense if they were responding to that energy to just go through their slides, to work away, get it done. Now, for me, what works really well is when people have questions, when I can interact. But when I'm interacting, I'm really just picking one person at a time to interact with, and then I'll let that person go, and then I'm focused on that. So it's like, and what I notice is that people really enjoy, like, when you watch that other call, you can enjoy witnessing the intense connection that's right there. So it's it works. There's ways to make it work, but
Yeah.
you know, I just really feel that kind of that thing, and it's fun. You know, it's very different with the three of us to with two of us.
Yeah.
But isn't it cool to just notice that difference there?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's great. You know, I do calls as well with when I'm reading the energy of a group, and then
Right.
you go into one person and then the others are listening in, and usually there's always going to be some themes that are reflected in that group that happens at the time. So yeah, it's really interesting one-to-one, but even within the group, when you go in and hone in that one person and others are listening in.
And then when you're in aura with people, a lot of projectors just don't, they have a hard time handling being around. I hang out at a microbrewery in town, but I don't drink beer.
Okay.
Maybe a little tequila every now and then, but just, you know, but I've just been really enjoying the heck out of being over there, hanging around the fire pit and listening to 3 and 4 different conversations, because I'm not really trying to analyze it. I'm in a place of being aware of what's in front of me in the moment, in the now. And for me, it's really interesting. And to know and see that most of the time I'm outside, like you mentioned, I'm kind of outside of that conversation, this conversation, this conversation. Every now and then somebody might drag me in a little bit, but most of the time, if you got 3 and 4 generators, it's hard to penetrate. You know, you just can't. I have a hard time doing it, and unless one of them turns to me and starts a one-on-one conversation. But it's just so interesting to watch how those dynamics work and how you feel within that dynamic. And I think that's the part that I really enjoy, is observing myself within the environment. But yeah.
Simran, can I see your hands? Right now, sit on them. Yeah, I have exactly the same experience as James. It's like the generators are all enveloping each other, and they're like rah, 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 rah. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, if you just did it like this, it would be a whole lot easier for all of you, right? But they didn't ask me. And if I pipe in and I say this thing, it would be like as if a Martian had just walked. They'd be like, huh? And then they're like, oh, don't know what that is, and they just go back to doing their thing anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas if I wait and they talk for half an hour, however long, and then they suddenly look across and they see me there and they go, oh, what do you think, Dunstan?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, blah, blah, blah. And they'll be like, oh, no way. Yeah, right. That's really cool. You know, it's like, because I've been invited,
Yeah.
then it's a totally different scenario.
That energy interaction happens. Yeah.
Then there's an invitation.
Yeah.
Because, you know, people don't want to be penetrated by a projector the whole time. They don't want to have that. You know, when it's right, they'll feel. And so sitting on the hands is a good practice for projectors.
There you go. Yeah.
But it's the same within. I think it's the same on Zoom. I think we don't even actually have to be there, because, for example, I can sense people's aura over the internet.
Totally, energy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because of the facial expressions that we're actually visually seeing the person while we're hearing them.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that adds to it, but
to be honest, I think it really lends itself well to a more full body, energetic experience of a conversation compared to, I mean, the written things on Facebook can be great to express all your thoughts and stuff, but it's come in, guys. It's rich, it's colorful. It really is this way around. So I got to wrap up, guys. I gotta.
And that was so much fun. I'm so grateful to be on here.
Awesome with sauce.
I'm glad I caught the tail end of it.
I'm glad you caught the tail end.
All right, I'm gonna jump off and let y'all go.
Thank you.
Peace and
Nice
love,
meeting
guys.
All right, how do I do it? Oh, here it is. There's the button. Bye, y'all.
See ya.
Well, that didn't work.
End meeting. I'll kick you off, don't worry.